All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to DAO Talks. This is DAO Talk interviews. I'm not even sure what number we're on right now, but today we have Steph from Govrn and a variety of other projects. Steph, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Do you go with Steph or Stefen?
I mean,
either one. Okay, cool. I don't want to like say the wrong thing.
just don't call me Steven or anything like that. That's the only thing.
Do people call you Steven a lot?
Bro, sometimes? every variant of my name has been like, there's a multiverse of Stefans right now that have been misnamed.
Dude, I can't imagine. Well, it's good to have you on the show. Let's just dive into it. So we'll give a quick intro on who you are, what you're involved in, and then this is the proto-DAO episode. So if you're unfamiliar with proto-DAOs, we'll jump into that in a little bit, but just a little tease. So Stefen, how did you get into crypto? What's your background? What led you to where we are today?
Oh boy, how deep do you want to go?
As much as you want. As deep as you want.
So going back into, let me start from here. I got really interested in fintech during that whole like fintech hype cycle, like maybe between 2013, 2014, when all these new apps were coming out and whatnot. I was really interested in that because I'd come from kind of an econ and finance background. I was starting to really fall in love with tech in general. So fintech was just like the obvious amalgamation, right? But then I realized really quickly that a lot of the hype was kind of, I mean, a lot of it was aimed at being, different from banking, different from the banks, especially post-crisis, right? But just realized very quickly that, pretty much all of it is still very rooted and very connected to the traditional financial system. And more importantly, even just in general, there's no access, in, let's say, much of the global south, especially the Caribbean, like even things like Venmo and Cash App, like down here we have no access to, like in the Bahamas, for example, which makes me fun at parties when it's time to pay the bill. But realizing really quickly that, this kind of era of fintech does not help many people. I was kind of looking for alternatives, and I kind of came across, I'd already started to follow crypto a little bit, but I didn't really understand the tech. And when I really dove deep to understand the tech, that's when I realized, okay, this is what I've been looking for. This is the next level of fintech. This is it's kind of its own ecosystem, its own economy that I already saw from then, maybe this was like, I don't know. This was not super early, but not super late, maybe like 2015, I want to say. I was like, okay, this is going to be what changes everything. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then from there, I spent some time just trying to find other people in the Caribbean who were really interested in blockchain and then crypto as well. So from there, found a few people. We formed a little community, and we eventually called that the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance. And it grew from, just a small community with maybe like less than 10 people in it to probably closer to like 200 over the years. And we mostly focused on, we came out the gate just doing advocacy in general. We mainly focus on education, a little bit of like public policy as well, but not like 9 times out of 10 education. So we've done a lot of different like webinars, workshops, courses, and stuff like that over the years. That's how I got into it.
Awesome. That's awesome. I love hearing, like, we talk to a lot of people, so we get a lot of different backgrounds. And they're never the same. A lot of like, back in 2013, back in 2014, post crash, Bitcoin just comes on the scene. A lot of that. I'm relatively newer in the newer age, but it's always good to talk to consider you an OG. So yeah, like I know I don't know if you do, but I love talking to like people who have been working in it for 10 plus years, and you've seen it all. Mike OG. Yeah. Denizens. Yeah. He's a different breed. I feel like we talk like every episode. I think we've done like over close to 100 episodes now. Like Denizens is brought up in one way or the other in every episode. Everything links back to him, but, yeah. And he's still here. He's not dead. Currently leaving, Mark. Yeah. So yeah, what are you currently, Steph, what are you currently working on? Now we've got kind of the background of how you've gotten to where you are right now. You kind of mentioned some of your projects you're working on, but what's going on currently? And then maybe we can like kind of parlay that into the proto-DAO conversation. Segue parlay.
Perfect. So pretty much all my time right now is for the last year, basically, actually almost a year fully, has been focused on Govrn. I know you've chatted with Aaron. I'm head of growth there. And we're just jamming on that. So I'm pretty much, Caribbean Blockchain Alliance is still there. But I'm spending pretty much all my time at Govrn because it's like, there's a number of different reasons. Obviously, I love DAOs. I think DAOs are very, very possibly the most important aspect of the space. Aside from like underlying technology. But being able to kind of recreate how people build, manage, and just participate in organizations is one of the most important things we could do, in my opinion. So what we're focused on at Govrn is the aspect of the contributions, meaning what people actually do, the actual activities, the actual participatory aspect of DAOs, and being able to follow that in real time.
Hell yeah. You mentioned we talked to Aaron previously, and I would say if you guys are listening to this, I'll link it in the show notes, but go listen to Aaron's episode on Govrn as well. Great episode. We love what you're doing. Tally loves Govrn. And I think I agree with you. There we go. Yeah, perfect. A symbiotic relationship. I think I agree with you 100. I'm talking a lot with my normie friends trying to explain DAOs, and people are starting to understand a little bit more. But the more I talk about it and the more, I have these conversations, I start to realize yeah, you're kind of right. Like DAOs arguably are obviously table stakes underlying technology, but what's being built on the technology being built on mainnet, and these L2s is DAOs, in terms of the collaboration and organization of labor and removing barriers to entry and whatnot. That kind of goes right into proto-DAOs. Well, first, let's define a proto-DAO for people who don't understand what it is, and then we can kind of jam on that.
And that's the thing, right? And, obviously we're going to talk about the article too, but kind of the point, and it's really the point of the article was to kind of solidify a definition, right? Because I was not the first person to use the word proto-DAO. A lot of people had used it before, but there was never necessarily a set definition. People had kind of used it in different ways. So the point of the article was just hey, let's synthesize what's already there and kind of, solidify this. So, in terms of the definition itself, it's really just a midpoint between, say, a loose online community and a fully fledged or fully deployed DAO. So it's pretty much that middle step. And obviously that's a wide gap. But it's kind of, it's when you have an online community that you're pushing to be a DAO. It's not there yet, but you want it to be more than just a loose community at the same time. So it's finding these the process of proto-DAOs is kind of finding these building blocks.
Where do you see? We've kind of talked. We've had LDF on too. I know we're all kind of in the same little group of thought leaders on Twitter, but that idea. Yeah, that in between that I think that in between that loosely formed that very initial sense of wanting to do something together, but not wanting to be fully on chain and operating. I think that proto-DAO, that middle ground, is where most of the cool shit in work gets done. Did you coin the phrase proto-DAO?
So yeah, I definitely did not coin the phrase.
Okay, you did it? Okay, no. I was making sure.
So I'd seen other people use it before, long before I did. So again, it was really about kind of solidifying what it actually meant, and then solidifying why it's important to spend time and focus on it. And that could also lead into all these conversations, especially from 2021, where everyone was just trying to do a DAO for anything. And it led to a lot of really important conversations, what actually constitutes a DAO. When, should we not just be throwing the word DAO onto anything? Which were important. And then as things matured and evolved, we have a lot more structure in terms of what a DAO actually is. But when it comes to naming things and figuring out what something should be called, that's especially when something is early, you can't really rush it. You have to let it kind of play out organically. So it was just too early to be like, oh, this is a proto-DAO. This is this kind of DAO. But now as things have matured a bit, as things have gotten a lot more solid, it's like, okay, it feels like it's the right time now. So let's spend some time focusing on that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what for you in particular, maybe we'll give some people more like concrete examples. Like what proto-DAOs are you involved in, or what have you done before? Like LDF talks about like ephemeral DAOs or like temporary DAOs, where like there is no like purpose for this to live on forever. I think a lot of us are stuck in like the legacy. This has to exist forever on chain and make money forever. But sometimes, like for instance, a proto DAO its value prop is that it is temporary and that it is just a short-term organization of labor, achieve a goal, this pop-up DAO. So like what are some that you have been involved in, or ones that you particularly enjoy or like point to as an example?
Yeah. And I agree, like ephemeral DAOs are dope. I think too, a proto DAO could be either, like it could be something that's just ephemeral or just like really short term, or it could be something that, there's a lot of thought long term into like making it a whole institution kind of thing. It could go either way, but I mean, my personal favorite, shout out to TreeDAO. TreeDAO is just the end all of all things because we all need to touch grass and we all need to go outside. We spend way too much time on this internet.
Was it Diana? I think she responded to the tweet I put out.
Yeah.
Saying to ask you about it. Yeah, I mean, tell us a little bit about what that is. We'll go right into that. What is
so I'm glad you brought up Diana too, because Diana's like the champion of it for sure. It was her idea, between her and Aaron, of just like throwing it out there and saying, hey, this should totally be a thing. Yeah, TreeDAO was literally, it's a proto-DAO, and it's not, there's no treasury, there's no token. And that's something that's important too, right? Because a lot of times when you're building communities, you don't want to start out the gate with like, oh, we need this, we need a treasury, we need a token. Like, you don't need to middle curve it, go left curve for a little while. Just make it fun at the end of the day. So that's kind of the focus on the proto-DAOs too, like making it fun and making it more casual and not having to gigabrain the whole thing, the whole idea of it. Especially when, people who aren't like in the space 24/7 come into it. So TreeDAO is just saying, hey, we all want to go outside. We all want to be in nature. We all want to be healthier. Let's kind of push ourselves to do that. So it literally, how it works, and this will go into like the Govrn aspect of it later too, is you can take a picture of yourself outside. That we could put in the notes. Take a picture of yourself outside, record it as a contribution on Govrn, and then you can kind of, a lot of people also tweet it just to show like, for the social aspect as well. It's super easy. It's super chill. You don't have to overthink it. It's just like, hey, go outside and then let other people know that you're outside. So the point of, recording it on Govrn, we can go more into that a little later too, is just having a kind of one community area that people can show their contributions and show that they're actually doing it, and then other people can engage with it really easily.
That's dope. I mean, before we go into Govrn, like I want to touch on, because I know you're doing a lot with education with the Caribbean, like what is the name of the project again?
Caribbean Blockchain Alliance.
Caribbean Blockchain Alliance. So yeah. I like back to like the I'm saying, having conversations with like these non-crypto native people, are proto-DAOs and like making things as fun as possible, and maybe the barrier to entry as small as possible in terms of like technical understanding. Like for instance, I think that is like the most important, or maybe most important for me, the most effective way I can onboard people into the space is just like by making something like TreeDAO, like that is as simple and as fun as possible. And then you kind of on-ramp them with things like Govrn, Tally, and other stuff like down the line.
Right.
Like what are you seeing from like an education standpoint when you're talking with a bunch of people who you want to onboard? Like, do you agree with that sentiment? Are there other things we're missing? Like what else can we be doing? And how do proto-DAOs, or maybe just like loosely formed collaboration, play into that?
Yeah, no, I love that question, because for me, and this is kind of a separate hypothesis, right? So I'll give the Caribbean example, in the Bahamas, but also like pretty much all throughout. It's obviously crypto is global, but if you don't have proper on-ramps and off-ramps, it's very hard to actually get into the space. And that's something that we have big issues with here, mainly because of like the banking system and maybe some countries have like exchange control and stuff like that. So a lot of times there's still like very little access to actually being able to obtain crypto, unless it's fully and directly peer to peer. So what I think, this is my hypothesis, I could end up being wrong. But I definitely think that DAOs, and especially proto-DAOs, could be a much more organic way for people to actually get into the space. Like, let's say they're working for a DAO, they're getting some kind of earnings. Maybe it's like USDC or something like that. Now all of a sudden they have crypto where they couldn't get it before. And instead of having to buy it, they're actually earning it, right? With proto-DAOs, it could be the same thing. Like, maybe, because I assume, most proto-DAOs will not have a token, but there could be some like NFT that they get, or some kind of, even just like a fake coin that people just want to play around with, maybe for like attribution or tips or whatever to each other. It doesn't necessarily have to have monetary value, but it's still an interaction that they would like get a wallet for and be able to do something with. So I definitely think a lot of adoption is going to come directly from DAOs, and proto-DAOs will be just like you were saying, it can be a really easy way and a really fun way for people to actually get it and be like, oh, I want to try this. Because a lot of people don't just want to be involved and they don't know where to start and they don't know how to maybe interact or engage with Web3. And then a lot of times, because it's difficult and because they may not understand, they end up just like playing around with random meme coins instead of actually being involved in the ecosystem. So yeah, I definitely think this will be a really good way for people to get in. And when you have something that's really easy, like TreeDAO or FarmDAO, which is like people who are actually doing farming, and there's actually a bunch of new ones that are about to come out too. I won't spoil, but people just want to make things fun at the end of the day, and everything should evolve around fun. Like, look at Joke Race. Like, it's a way for people to actually engage in governance in a fun way. So having, being able to also engage in like maybe contributing to an economy in a fun way is a huge part of it as well.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Like, I think meme coins are like the big thing because it's tied directly to like financialization, and people see it because they're like, oh, I can get a massive reward. But I think the people that are DAO pilled like us, who kind of see the writing on the wall for the future of like, yeah, like contributing to the economy, doing fun things, interacting in ways that like reflect real life. Once it grows, if it grows, which is what I think we're all here building, it is kind of the most important thing and the thing that has the largest potential market, because it's kind of just like life, right? Like DAOs are life.
DAOs are life.
DAOs are life. But yeah.
DAOs are everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cliche, but like it kind of like when you peel back the curtain and the layers, you go like, oh yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But like yeah.
I was just gonna say, life is built out of community interaction at the end of the day. So all we're doing is enhancing that, pretty much.
Yeah. I think like these conversations, and like I bring up LDF again, but LDF's producing a lot of content around it. Like, I think people think because they can't make a meme coin and they can't, give people millions of dollars in returns, they think like making something like TreeDAO is not important or like provides value, but it does, right?
It does.
Especially because it just adds, because as more people do it, and then you get momentum, and then you have the massive thing or the massive movement over time, right? Which is like the age-old question of like governance, like people don't think their vote matters, right? And then it's like no one votes and blah, 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 et cetera. So, yeah.
Change the system, change the way people interact with governance.
Exactly, yeah. Well, let's go right into Govrn. We talked a little bit about it in terms of, attestations and recording your contributions of these DAOs on chain. I'm not going to try to explain it. I want to hear it directly from you. How does Govrn play a role in proto-DAOs, and also like, what exactly is Govrn and why should people have it on their radar?
Yeah. So Govrn is a contribution tracking platform. It's also a protocol that's built underneath. But it's really just for, if you have these communities, it could be, at any point, it could be a full DAO, 9 times out of 10, the problem, at least on our side, the problem we hear is that people just don't know what's going on within their communities, within their DAOs. So we're we're pushing to solve that problem in particular, along with a few like minor ones as well, but mainly actually letting people understand the work that's being done, the contributions that are happening. So one, you record your own contribution, and that allows for a kind of bottom up way of interaction, activity, participation, etc. So once you record that contribution, you can mint it on chain, which also means that you can take it wherever you go, especially if you leave your DAO or you leave your community and go somewhere else, or like something happens and it just like kind of shuts down. You can always have your contributions with you, and which means you always have a record of what you've done. And at the same time, also adding to the fact that as you record your own contributions, other members can attest to it, meaning they can kind of co-sign it or verify that, hey, I'm acknowledging that Tommy actually did this. And it kind of builds this layer of trust as well, and reputation in a sense. And then after doing all this, what it allows is for, because we have dashboards, we have ways to basically give you a bird's eye view of not just your own contributions that you've done over time, but also all of the community contributions. And that leads to better coordination. It leads to being able to follow all, like everything the group has done, the community has done over time, and say, okay, this is how we've evolved. This is how we've shifted. And what that allows for proto-DAOs, and this is why I think Govrn is like the best place for proto-DAOs to be. Shameless plug. If you're looking at like online communities on one end and then full DAOs on the other end, again, there's a huge gap in between, and you have to think about the building blocks. And a lot of times you don't want to be like, oh, I have to think about the treasury now. Oh, do we want to create a token? Like a lot of the time you shouldn't be thinking about those things until much later on. Like you just want to focus on like building a community and having people do things. Especially if they're not, like, since a lot of proto-DAOs are focused on more fun or more casual things, if it's not like, specific bounty work that people are getting paid for, if it's less intense than that, it's so much easier to just be like, hey, we're a regular community, we're just going to do stuff, and we're very simply going to record the contributions that we've done. And that really allows for two things. One, in general, as you're recording your contributions as a community, as all these people are coming in just doing random things or just like showing themselves skateboarding outside, what it allows you to do is have these building blocks where you can say, in June, these are the contributions that have happened in the last 6 months. And then a year later, maybe when it's time to deal with the treasury and deal with deployment and all of that, you have this foundation of contributions that you can build things on top of. Because of course it's also composable, right? So then you can go into, if you want to add governance that's based off the contributions that have already happened and that are going to happen later on, you can build it with a foundation of contributions. If you want to build like reputation on top of that, again, you have this foundation of contributions that are already there and will continue to be there. And even in a more raw form, as more people come into your proto-DAO, your community, as things pop up, as things evolve, you already have this kind of basis of the work that was already done, and you can in real time see how the community is evolving, see how the community is shifting. You could even be like, oh, well, this type of contribution has been happening a lot in the last quarter, and maybe you can kind of go back and say, oh yeah, this is what happened a year ago. It's really just about being able to, again, coordinate at the end of the day and see how your own community has evolved, how it's shifted. And then when it's time to make it a full DAO, people, like, the community itself becomes much more robust because now you already have all these people doing these specific actions, working together more closely maybe, or even just doing stuff together more closely. And you have a much deeper sense of what's actually been done and where you should go next because you have this idea of what's actually been done already. And even for when new people join, it's like, instead of them having to like go through the Discord or if there is one and figure out what exactly they should do, they could literally just look on Govrn, see what's happened and be like, oh, okay, I can fill a gap here or I can get comfortable over here. It makes that whole aspect so much easier. So I definitely see Govrn as like the point or the building block for proto-DAOs for when they eventually want to move forward.
So like tying it in, like how does that work with TreeDAO? Like how are you using Govrn and TreeDAO?
Yeah. So with TreeDAO, and it's funny, right? Because Dan actually did this tweet that kind of explains how to join TreeDAO, and it's literally just, hey, record your contribution, record yourself doing something, and you're in. Which is really cool, because then if your community is very low stakes, then you can make it as easy as possible. You could literally just be like, hey, you're way in. Like say if you take Constitution DAO, for example, where a lot of people joined DAOs just through there. And it was literally, and I wasn't part of it, so I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was just, hey, you put something into the treasury, you get a token out of it, and you're part of it. But it's also like, hey, what if you don't have to engage in some kind of monetary transaction or monetary activity? You're just here to hang out. You're just here to be in a community. All you have to do, and this is again to make sure that this robustness happens and this being able to like follow what's actually going on happens. You simply go on Govrn, record the contribution, and then that allows you to be a part of TreeDAO's community. And then as you go along, as new people come in and record theirs, you can follow what's going on. You can see like, oh, what this person does is what this person did is actually really cool. I want to try to do that. Which has happened and has led to like some really funny stuff. But yeah, that's kind of the basis of it. And it's all centered around, like, all the interactions are centered around interacting on Govrn, which is actually really cool. And as people, and, as you do more things, you can continue to add more contributions, and you're seeing how it kind of builds out this like community lore at the end of the day. Cause it's like a kind of archiving of everything that folks have done. And it's not just like, I'm rambling a bit now, but it's not just like, hey, I did this and it has nothing to do with what you did. It's like, oh no, we're doing this together, and we're kind of seeing how things evolve as we kind of play around with this.
Damn, dude, I'm learning. You're at the center. You're at the center of it all. As we're recording,
it's just exciting.
No, dude, it's awesome. Yeah, I'm like, damn, I got a lot to do after this episode. I got a lot of research on things.
Come through.
I think we kind of joked about on Twitter, like creating a proto-DAO around the episode on proto-DAOs. But as we're recording this, Aaron just tweeted, he like made a meme about it, and he's gonna record it as a contribution to the episode proto-DAO. And I think I've always been interested in like kind of seeing who our listeners are and maybe interacting with them a little bit more. So I think this will be a good episode to kind of test that and see, who's listening, who's actually putting their money where their mouth is. So when this episode's posted, if you're listening to this, it'll be in a week or two from when we're recording. There is a proto-DAO on this episode about proto-DAO, so go join it. We'll have more info around that. But I mean, kind of wrapping, we always end with the same questions. First one is, what is your favorite part of Web3? And then the follow-up is, if you could change anything about Web3, what would you change? You can switch the order too if you want. And then we have one more follow-up, and that would be it. Cool.
No, these are always interesting questions, and I feel like my question is either always the same. I mean, my answer is either always the same or always like rapidly different. Yeah, I mean, my favorite part of Web3 is easily DAOs. Like it kind of goes without saying for me, because everything else can be a part of DAOs. Like DeFi, you can interact with DAOs. You have DeFi DAOs. NFTs, a lot of them organized within DAOs. So yeah, DAOs are kind of like the end all be all for me, for sure. And then in terms of what would I change? I mean, so many things, but yeah, I mean, I would say something I always mention is that like Web3 culture is still feels very like North American centered, especially when it comes to like, funding and stuff like that. But yeah, being able to look at these projects in a more global light. And I mean, it's interesting because crypto itself is very global. Like there's a lot of adoption, especially throughout the global South, but a lot of like the core Web3 projects, a lot of the like exciting things that are happening still feel very focused on the US in a lot of ways. And that's changing, which is great. And then outside of that, I mean, yeah, just focus, like we definitely need to focus more on like creating change and being able to like do things that are going to change people's lives at the end of the day. So,
great answer. That's a great answer. That was good. No, I mean, that's probably one of my favorite answers, because I think like we're guilty of it as well. Like not, focusing a ton on on the global impacts. That's why we talked about Dennison earlier, but Dennison, is very intentional about us like focusing more than just, where we're at in North America. So it's awesome to hear that perspective. And I hope we can get more. Maybe we'll collaborate after and trying to get more people on DAO Talk who, are outside of just, our North American bubble. But last question, favorite place in the world and why?
Wow.
We've had every possible answer.
God. I'm not gonna be cliche and say the Bahamas, but favorite place in the world to visit. Actually, I'm gonna be real basic and say New York.
Yeah, that's a good one, dude. I'm right there with you.
New York, especially, coming from a small place. I've lived in a small place pretty much all my life. Being in New York is just, everything is there. The culture is incredible. The diversity obviously is incredible. And it's just such a different vibe. But it's it's expansive and it's contained in at the same time in a really interesting way. But I love it. I've never been to New York and not been happy.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. Like, I don't know if I could live there, but visiting there, like,
it's great.
It's electric every time. Electric every time. Well, Steph, thank you for joining. Where can people find you on Twitter, socials, whatever? Plug your shit. Shameless.
Sure. Obviously, Twitter is the main way by far. Also, you can definitely follow both Govrn and Caribbean Blockchain Alliance on Twitter. I'm actually changing some things around on the CBA website, so stay tuned for that. But for right now, definitely Twitter. Twitter's the best way. Also, check out all of our mirror posts for Govrn as well.
Of course. We'll link everything in the show notes that Steph just mentioned, and then everything we talked about as well. Be on the lookout for the proto-DAO on this episode on proto-DAOs.
We're doing it. We're doing it right after this.
I'm looking forward to it, man. This has been an awesome episode. Thank you for joining. Hopefully we'll hear more from you in the future, but thanks, man.
Definitely, man.